Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Youthman. Over the past year, I have reviewed several home theater components from Monolith. I've reviewed several of their subwoofers as well as their home theater speaker system. And today I've got an incredible unboxing overview and an initial setup of their 16-channel processor, the HTP-1. Now, before we dive into the video, if you're new to home theater or maybe you're new to this channel, consider subscribing because I produce weekly content on home theater, audio, as well as video that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Now, I know it's taken a while to get the HTP-1 into review for you guys, but I'm glad it's here. And so enough talking, let's get to unboxing. One thing I have noticed with Monolith, they love putting these staples in all their boxes, which honestly is a pain. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed up the process and get all these pulled out. All right, and here's the last staple. Like I said, it'd be so much easier if they just put tape on there, but it's all good. All right, let's go ahead and open her up here. So in the top, we've got just a nice amount of padding all around it. So that's always good. It's not double boxed. On the top, we've got a bag that has all of our accessories. So we've got a 3-prong IEC power cable, an infrared remote, 2 AAA batteries for the remote, and a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antenna. And just some miscellaneous paperwork. So inside here, we do not have the owner's manual, and that is because the owner's manual is built into the software. So we're going to take a look at that in just a bit. So we'll go ahead and remove the unit from the box. Now, because this is a processor, so basically a processor is similar to an AVR, like a receiver, except it doesn't have internal amplification built in. So it makes it a lot lighter, because you don't have like that big toroidal transformer. All right, let's turn her around here. Take a look at the front. So I believe this is a B-stock unit that has been sent to me. So it's not like 100% pristine as far as, you know, this little plastic here. So when you get yours, it's gonna be a lot tidier. But man, definitely like the brushed aluminum across the front. We'll get a closer look at that in just a second. If we take a look at the front of the unit, it's very minimalistic in style and design, but man, I really like what I'm seeing because we've got this kind of two-tone style here. So this is almost like a matte black, and then in contrast, we've got this brushed aluminum across the front, which looks really, really nice. Over on the far left, we have a 5-inch LCD display. This will show things like volume, as well as what source is being selected, and also what is being processed. Now, the LCD panel is a touchscreen, but currently the LCD touchscreen interface is only used for the Wi-Fi setup, as well as to mute the unit. In the top middle, we have the Monolith logo. Below that, we have the on and off switch. Over to the right, we have a large volume knob, and then the IR sensor to the right of that. And below that, we can see that the unit will process Dolby Atmos, DTSX, AURO-3D, and one of the things I'm most excited to check out is DIRAC Live that is built into the unit, as well as bass management. If we take a look at the rear of the unit, we can see we have 8 HDMI inputs that all support 4K HDCP 2.2 protocol. We've got 2 HDMI outputs, one of which handles ARC as well as eARC. To the right of that is a connection for USB audio. Behind the system recovery tab is an SD card in case the unit needs to be reset to factory, an Ethernet port as well as a service port, a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antenna. Below that, we have a ground for a phono stage. Over on the far left, we have 2 analog inputs. To the right of that, we have 3 coaxial digital inputs as well as 3 optical digital inputs. An AES EBU digital input, a mix out in case you have some powered speakers that you want to send the downsampled audio to, 1 trigger input as well as 4 trigger outputs. Now this is great to have that many trigger outs to be able to send that signal to dedicated amplifiers that you're going to need to connect to this unit to power your entire system. And then down at the bottom we have a long row of balanced XLR outputs for all of your channels. And then lastly, all the way to the far right, we have our main power switch as well as our 3-prong IEC connection. Now for this review, I'll be connecting the HTP-1 with my Monolith 11X amplifier. Now this is an 11-channel amplifier that will be powering 11 speakers, 7 on the ground floor, as well as 4 Dolby Atmos speakers. I'll also be connecting 2 subwoofers to this using the XLR outputs. Now it's going to take me a little bit to disassemble my Marantz AV7705 processor and get the HTP-1 in place. So I'm going to kind of pause the video. We'll go ahead and fast forward and get that all set up. And then once we do, I'll walk you through on how to set this up and calibrate it. All right guys, so here we are behind my cabinet, and so hopefully the lighting is decent enough for you to see. So we've got all of our XLR inputs down here, and so one thing that's nice with all of my XLR inputs, I've got labels on them, so it makes it really easy for me to connect everything. So we're just going to go ahead and start connecting each one of these. Front right, which will go there. Center. There. Hardest part is finding them. There we go, front left. I'll go ahead and get all these connected, and we'll come back and I'll show you what I've got done. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got. So in my setup, I've got 7 floor level speakers, 2 subwoofers, and 4 Dolby Atmos speakers. So here are my main speakers, my left, my right, my center, subwoofer 1, left side surround, right side surround, surround back, which is the left speaker, surround right back. Then these are my Atmos speakers, 2 of them. So we got the left top front, right top front. And then over here we have the left top rear and the right top rear. And then my second subwoofer. Now since we have 16 channels in this, you can see we've got extra space if you had like your left wides, right wides, if you had a third subwoofer, and so that allows some additional flexibility there. So now what we have to do is plug in my components. So I've got my Blu-ray player, we'll plug that into HDMI 1 right here. We have my PS4. We'll plug that into HDMI 2 right here. Sorry, I'm trying to hold the light, and I'm on one elbow back here. And then our third HDMI, which is a Fire Stick TV. That'll go into HDMI 3. And then out to my projector, we're going to use HDMI 1 output over here. So that's going to the projector. I'm going to plug in my Ethernet cable right here, top right. Just like that. And then the last thing we just need to plug in is my trigger to turn on the amplifier. So we'll plug that into the trigger output 1. All right, now one more thing before we climb out of here. I forgot to plug in the main power switch. So we're going to plug in that cable. and we're going to go ahead and turn on the unit. The first time you turn on the unit, it's going to take about a minute. I've went ahead and sped up the process here. It's going to boot up just like a computer. Once it boots all the way up and it's ready, it actually automatically turns on a fast boot that allows it to boot up very quickly the next time you turn the unit on. Okay, so now that the HTP-1 is booted up, we can see over on the right, we've got the Monolith 11X amplifier that's been turned on using the 12-volt trigger output on the HTP-1. So the next step, we need to go ahead and set up the unit, and we're going to do that through the use of my iPad. And so I'll do some screen recordings and share with you the various menus that we have inside the web application. All right, so now what we want to do is I'm on my iPad. We're going to go to Chrome. We're going to come up here to the top, and we're going to type in http:// and the IP address will be on the front bottom left of the LCD panel of the HTP-1. So mine happens to be 10.0.0.63, and we'll hit go. Now what this is going to do is it's going to link up with the Monolith HTP-1, and here you can see we've got pretty much just a touch screen available to us with all the features for the unit. So here you can see we've got volume control. Down here we've got inputs for HDMI 1, HDMI 2, all the way up to HDMI 8. So we could click on each one of those to activate those. And so we're going to go in and rename those in just a little bit. Down here we can select how we want the sound upmixed. You know, do we want direct, native, Dolby Surround, DTS, neural, AURO-3D, even in stereo, maybe you're listening to music. Down at the bottom left, we've got night mode. We can turn on and off, loudness on and off, as well as dialogue enhancement off. Now, the blank space right there to the left of loudness off and night off is where DIRAC will be. More than likely, we'll need to go ahead and install DIRAC and set it up first before that will be active. And so what we're going to do is come up here to the toggle button, or the cog wheel up here at the top. We'll click that. And so here we have several tabs. We've got a tab for speakers, calibration, EQ, inputs, sound enhancement, connectivity. I'm not going to go through each one of these. A lot of this I'll be diving into on my own as I learn this software. All right, so let's just go ahead and go through some basic setup that I would normally do on a normal receiver or a processor. So under speakers, I know that I like to have my left and right channel set to small. We're just going to leave the crossover set at 80 Hertz. I do have a subwoofer. I'm going to turn on this second subwoofer in just a minute, because if I turn it on now or try to turn it on now, it's going to say I have too many speakers already enabled. And so we need to come down here. In my setup, like I mentioned before, I have 7 ground level speakers. So I have 3 front speakers. So that would be my left front, left right. I'm sorry, my left front, right front, my center channel. So that's 3. Down here we have a left and right surround and a left and right rear surround, but I do not have a left and right wide. So I'm going to turn that off by toggling that. Try that again. There we go. And then scrolling down here, it's asking, you know, how many height channels do I have? Actually, before I do that, I'm going to set, again, all these to small. Again, we're just going to leave those. That one we can leave to large because it's disabled anyway. My upper speakers, which are basically my Dolby Atmos, we're going to set those to, I'm not going to do Dolby. I'm going to set mine to small. I'm going to set that to small. So that's another thing. See, I'll have to take a look and see, do they recommend, is the Dolby Atmos option there, is that referring to like up firing speakers, which in my case I don't. So I'm going to set it to small, but I am going to increase this. I think usually mine are set to about 120 for my Atmos. And then we'll come over here, set that to 120 as well. There we go. And then we've got a front, left and right top, and then actually we don't have a middle, so we're going to turn that one off, and then we're going to leave on the left and right top rear, set that to small, and again we'll go ahead and change that to 120 for now. We can always kind of come back in here and tweak this, but this is what I'm going to start off with. Okay, so that basically is our setup. So we've got, now I want to go ahead and turn on the subwoofer 2. See, before I got an error message and it didn't let me turn on subwoofer 2 because I had all those other wide channels and additional middle height, and so it said, hey, you don't have enough available options to you. All right, so we've got everything set up. So we got front, center, right, left and right side, left and right rear surround, and then we've got our Dolby Atmos speakers down here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're good there. So let's come back up to calibration. So calibration, so this allows us to set some different things depending on your max desired listening volume. In my case, I really have never gone above 0 dB, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to turn on DIRAC room correction if we can. Nope, we cannot do that yet. Again, we may have to wait until we actually run that, and then it allows to turn that on and off. Minimum volume, I'm going to go ahead and set that. I don't want it at negative 100. I usually start off about negative, let's just say negative 30. I'll tell you, negative 25. So that's a good volume for me. That means when we first boot up the system, it's going to default to negative 25 decibels. So how do we move this thing out of the way? Okay, so this is something a little weird. There we go. I had to hit the bottom right button to get rid of that. It says please enter a value that is greater than negative 100 and less than negative 60. Well, that's kind of crazy. All right, we'll leave it at negative 60 then. That's a really, really stinking low volume. I don't like that already, but that's okay. Amplifier sensitivity, we're going to leave it at the default 1.6 volt. Looking in the manual, it said a lot of amplifiers are anywhere between 1 and 2 volts. So you may have to contact your manufacturer to find out the best setting there. And so we'll just take a look down here. So these are going to be the filters that DIRAC adds. So right now we haven't installed DIRAC, and so we don't have any measurements there. We'll just take a peek at the EQ. So here we've got some different options here. So you can add your own kind of custom EQ. Down here we've got, looks like, how many bands? Cool. So we got a 16 band EQ. So you can add some manual adjustments through what they call a PEQ, parametric EQ. And you can add that to each one of the channels. You can add the frequency, you can add gain, you can add Q value, which kind of narrows that frequency range. And so again, that more than likely is going to be handled by the DIRAC. And we don't want to get out of there, so let's go back into the menu. So there's a little bit of lag, so when we click on that. So inputs, let's take a look at that. So HDMI input. So if you remember, I connected I'll just call it Pioneer. So this is my 4K player. Pioneer, we'll call it Pioneer 4K. Cool. And then we'll go to HDMI 2 was the PS4. And then HDMI 3 was the Fire Stick TV. There we go. All right. Now you'll notice over here on the far right, we can actually turn on or off individual inputs. So that way if you're not using them, there's no reason for them to be shown on your homepage. So I'm going to enable HDMI 3 right here so that is shown. But we're going to turn off all the rest of these HDMIs. We're not using any of these, so we don't need those on the main screen. So we'll just go ahead and turn all those off. We're not using Roon. We're not using AES. Bluetooth, I'll leave that on. And everything else should be good. Perfect there. Man, I keep exiting out of it. So, all right, so now we're going into sound enhancement. Let's see what options we have here. So we've got different options. So here's where, let's just say you never, ever, ever use DTS Neural X. And so you can turn that off by toggling that switch there. I'm going to leave it on because I'm going to play with the different upmixing. And so we can see if you're using center spread, again, you've got some options there. I've never used center spread. I've never used wide synth. So I'm going to leave those off. All of these will leave set there. I really don't use mono at all ever, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. So we'll toggle that little switch there. And then down at the bottom, there's an option for reinforced bass. I don't like to add like that. Basically, if you're wanting the subwoofer or the lower frequencies to go to both your mains, if you've got them set to large, and you want the LFE going to the LFE channel like your subwoofer, then some places call it, or some manufacturers call it double bass, or in this case, it's reinforced bass. I'm going to leave that off. Definitely do not need that. Let's look at connectivity. So this would be if you have a device like a TV that has EARC or ARC, auto return channel, or enhanced auto return channel. So I don't have that, so we're going to leave that off. I have a projector, so there's no apps in the projector that I would need to send sound from the projector to the HTP-1. But if, let's say, for instance, you have a television, you've got an OLED, or you've got an LCD panel or an LED panel, and it's a smart TV, and you've got Netflix built into it, you've got Spotify built into it, a great way to get sound from that back to the HTP-1 is enabling the CEC. That's going to allow it to control using the volume on your TV remote and so forth. And so, but again, in my case, I don't need that, so I'm going to leave that turned off. This is just some IP information. That is the IP that we plugged in, 10.0.0.63, which allows us to connect to the HTP-1. So if we wanted to set up Wi-Fi, which I'm not going to, I always recommend using a hardwired connection. You're just going to get a much faster connection. So I'm not going to do that, but if I were to click this right here, if you wanted to do Wi-Fi, come on, one more time. First little glitch here. So it is not. Let's try it again. There we go. Wow. Well, I'm not sure why that's not staying open. So if you notice when I click here, there we go. Maybe it's like double tapping. But anyway, so you can see Stevens. So that would be my network. So I could click on that, type in my password, and we could be connected through Wi-Fi. So again, I'm not going to use that. We're going to click this right arrow over here. So the last two options we've got here, we've got one for system. So we could rename this if I wanted to name it Youthman. If you're Mr. Stud Muffin, whatever name you want to name it, that is absolutely up to you if you want to rename that. The fast start on, I mentioned to you earlier, as it was booting up, as it got to the very end of the boot up cycle, it did say fast start on. So it automatically enables that. But if for whatever reason you want the unit to boot up, that long process, about a minute, you can turn that off. I would rather have that on so that it boots up pretty quick. So we got video pass through is currently set to off. Power on the volume is going to start up at -50. You can change the front panel brightness. So let's see what options we have here. So we're just going to click it. Looks like it's got some defaults. So every time you click it, would have kind of been nice if we could, click a slider. But I guess pretty much once you set this, you kind of forget it. You don't really need to mess with it. But that would have been nice to be able to, turn it on or off easily. So I guess it turns off easily because we were at 10. But then you got to tap each time to change from 4 to 5 to 6. So that's a little bit not quite intuitive. But we're just going to leave it at 10 for now. the volume display button. When I hit that, it's okay. So we got a slider, both. So we got a couple options there. We've got a button for, a slider, and both. So honestly, I'm not real sure what that's going to do. I'm not seeing anything changing on the front display, and I think the reason is because we're in the setup menu. It's not going to update until we exit out of this. So I'm just going to leave it as volume display to button. Let's see. So we can... Okay, so this would be where you can import like all your settings or export your settings so you can save that. We've got display video status on the home page. Sure, why not? We're going to turn on this other one down here, display extended audio status. Turn both of those on. I don't think I really need any advanced input settings. I'm pretty basic guy. Support tools, I'm not really worried about that. And then the signal generator. So this is where you can set level controls. So we'll click on that. But I don't see anything happening. So that may not be able to happen unless I'm connected to a computer, because we're going to need to connect probably an HDMI out from the computer to the HTP-1. Again, this is all brand new to me, so I'm going to have to do some playing around to see how that works. But definitely you cannot send, at least from what I'm seeing here, you can't send the test tones or signal generator directly from the iPad to the Monolith. So I just wanted to go through, just some of the basic options here so that you can kind of see. I really like the user interface. It seems pretty responsive. It's a little slow. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like as fast as, say, my phone. So there is a little lag, as you can see here. If I click, it takes just a second. It's not bad, though. And honestly, it could even be my daughter's older iPad. So, I mean, it's not super old, but it's definitely not the latest, greatest. Not an iPad Pro with a super fast processor. But I like the graphic user interface. Makes it really easy to go through. So again, looks pretty cool. So we'll go ahead and click exit. And so now we can see on the home page, we've got all of those inputs are updated. We got the Pioneer 4K, we got the PS4, Fire Stick TV, Bluetooth. So if I wanted to, jump on the PS4 and play some gaming, I could just hit that straight from here. So that's one of the differences that will have to be, I guess, take a little bit of getting used to. So you can have this set up on a phone or a tablet. A computer is going to be a lot more clunky, but I like the fact that we're able to connect to this wirelessly. To me, that's a huge thing. Now, if you're interested in the HTP-1, I have links to it down in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'll be doing a full review of the HTP-1 as well as some videos on DIRAC Live. So be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those future videos. And as always, you guys be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.